When it comes to world dominance, throughout the history, different technologies have been the reason. Like for example, Genghis Khan because of bow and arrow, Britain Empire because of the well-equipped ship, America because of.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
In the 21st century, world dominance seems to belong to a nation who shall make better semiconductors. The semiconductors that run traffic signals to satellites and are omnipresent in our lives, making this communication possible. In this episode, we will see how few countries have already become a kind of a superpower, how they did it, and how is the pecking order changing rapidly, and what is India's status in this grand scheme, and what can it do to get ahead. This is microchip wafer made of semiconductor, meaning its conduction of electricity can be controlled and presence and absence of current can be notified as zeros and ones, on which our very digital world works. Here is the thing, making it isn't easy. In fact, one of the hardest things. Like this is a transistor, the thing that holds ones and zeros, and as you can see it's pretty small, but not small enough. Especially when you need the computation power to run AI, VR and all the advanced technologies, we need at least billions of these to even come close to the required necessity for the technologies to work. So we use light and lasers in multiple rounds to print those circuits into those chips, and which at macroscopic level looks almost like a city. And this process is so specialized that only one country is leading, and that also miles ahead. Like Taiwan fulfills 60% of the world's semiconductor and 90% of the world's advanced chip appetite, and it was going good until
Taiwan says 28 Chinese warplanes, including fighter jets and nuclear-capable bombers, crossed into its airspace as the tension between Taiwan and China is growing.
with Chinese aggression towards the island country, the world woke up to the reality of how dependent it is on Taiwan, be it their economy, national security, or their growth, and how without it the world could come to a halt. No wonder the USA put itself literally in the middle of the conflict, as it was no longer a cheap act of China expanding its border, but a threat to the whole world. Parallel to defending Taiwan, the world also decided to diversify its manufacturing of microchips, which triggered a race to be the next semiconductor superpower of the world, as it was clear whoever produces the supreme semiconductor will in turn be accepted as superpower. But now the question arises is how the island nation became so big and what can other nations learn from it. Taiwan is one of the four Asian tigers, meaning they all have rags to riches story. So in 1970, they had three main challenges to overcome, which is pretty much true now also for other nations who want to grow in this industry. First was the high initial capital cost. Long story short, the initial cost of setting up the unit is ridiculous. One basic rule is the smaller or advanced the chip, the bigger the unit. To sustain in the market, acquisition of cutting-edge machinery is of huge importance. Plus, it has a very slow development and production cycles that extend to years, nearing decade, which exponentially increases the R&D cost, and not to mention the exceptional high licensing cost for external patents. Second was talent acquisition of highly qualified personnel, like scientists and engineers, which are not easy to find or often not available. And the third was the industry itself, like it's extremely risky business as the development cycles are long and product life cycles are short, meaning the development of technology requires huge time and investment, and possibility of that product working are extremely low. And even if it works, the duration it stays advanced is 1 to 2 years max. So with all these issues, it must be impossible for the Taiwanese government to grow into such a demanding industry, especially considering the state of the economy that they were at that time. We can safely say that Taiwan had none of the three criteria needed to grow in a semiconductor industry. So how did it do it? Taiwan came up with the triad solution for a triad problem. Imitate, invest and educate. Let's start with imitate. The Taiwanese government set up the ITRI or Industrial Technology Research Institute in 1973, and it bought patents and license using government money. So by doing that, Taiwan was able to imitate technologies in a completely legal way. Other than that, it was also able to imitate by collaborating with foreign companies. Through ITRI, companies like Intel and Motorola outsource part of the production to Taiwanese companies. Foreign companies benefited from cheap labor, but Taiwanese got the hold of advanced technology without the need to spend on the research. However, apart from imitating, other thing ITRI did was to invest in their own scientific research. Like at the very beginning, testing indigenous chip was an expensive and tedious process. So the institute financed and developed its own computerized testing that gave industry an edge over others. So ITRI basically became a shared research hub for all the local companies. Therefore, ITRI can be credited for giving a boost to unstructured industry. But that was not all, as copying can take you so far. Another way Taiwanese government invested in the industry was to offer tax cut. Like in 90s, companies were charged 1 to 2% as compared to 20% in other countries. There was a lack of investment as there was practically no one with that kind of money to invest except the government. So it became the co-owner in most of the companies at that time. Like for example, the famous TSMC founded in 1987 was also a result of this, as it made 48% partnership. Despite all this, Taiwan still lacked a skilled workforce. That needed collaboration between the industry and the universities. This close collaboration actually doubled the percentage of people with higher education in 18 years. Other thing the government did was actually see people who are willing to go abroad as an asset as opposed to brain drain. That way, some people who have worked in the best companies in the world returned with some deep insights and skills not available before. Not only that, a few of them ended up starting their own companies. Still, after all this, there was one important factor that helped Taiwan was luck. What do I mean by that is in recent times, companies used to do all the tasks, that is design, develop, manufacture or lithography and market by themselves, which over time had difficulties. Like design and developing are itself a task. Mix manufacturing or lithography technology, well, development cycles go for a toss. Not to mention adaptation of new technologies in a closed system. When certain companies were juggling all these challenges by themselves, few companies that were outsourcing a few specializations suddenly started leaping ahead. Industries were splitting up into two segments. One who developed and designed and others who manufactures them. This benefited Taiwanese companies in a big way, as there was no longer need to split their resources and focus on developing lithography technologies. Apart from Taiwan, top players in semiconductor include America, South Korea and Japan. These nations control the major technology and know-how when it comes to chip manufacturing. China wasn't the major player until it did this.
Now, according to reports, Huawei Technologies, the Chinese telecommunications giant and also SMIC, China's top chip maker, have built an advanced 7-nanometer processor to power its latest smartphone,
which estimate China to be about 5 years behind, and that too with all these sanctions. But amongst all, this one nation has been coming out as a winner, and that is Malaysia. Malaysia is at the critical juncture where it is benefiting greatly, and what can India learn from it? First thing to mention is Malaysia is no newbie to the semiconductor industry. It has a 50-year history in the back end of the semiconductor manufacturing supply chain, and its ambition to move up to the higher value activity is quite recent. But remember how we mentioned that one of the part of Taiwan's advancement in technology was luck? Malaysia seems to have that on its side too. In its recent tech war between US and China, USA has relayed support from its European and Asian allies to isolate China. Major Western semiconductor equipment manufacturers cannot sell their most advanced shipment to China because of US restrictions. But the other part of the story is that all of these manufacturers source parts from Chinese companies. So they tell suppliers, if you don't move out of China, we will have to find new alternative. Chinese companies are then forced to move or expand to places like Southeast Asia, so they don't lose business, which means a sudden inrush of Chinese manufacturers in Malaysia. But all is not lost for India, as India might have a sledge to get ahead. You see, it's quite obvious that Malaysia is quite ahead when it comes to chip fabrication technology, but the geopolitics is breaking hard. Washington has already put pressure on Kuala Lumpur for tilting towards Beijing under Anwar, who took office in 2022. The USA, who is the biggest contributor in Malaysia's FDI, may clamp down further on Chinese technology. Some analysts and industry groups fear it may restrict product and equipment built in Malaysia by the flood of the new Chinese companies.
To be a real opportunity for India to finally have an edge as an alternative investment destination for chip manufacturing. But the road won't be easy. Here's the thing, India has to make sure below of the things to at least be a contender in the game. I acknowledge that India has launched an incentive scheme of 76,000 crore, approximately $9 billion incentive back in 2021, and it is about to exhaust. But this won't be enough as compared to the USA Chip and Science Act, a law that provides $52.7 billion, or Malaysia's New Industrial Master Plan or NIMP, a plan that allocates 19.8 billion by 2030. So all the private players have to come along. Now Tata has already entered, but India will need all its billionaires to enter in this market, as this is too big a game even for Tatas. Second, we need to develop a talent pool for this high-tech industry. And don't give me an argument that we have the largest pool of engineers. Just don't. Most of the engineering colleges in India, to put it gently, are a sham. We need to develop a real talent pool, which can only happen if we are able to create engineering college specializing in chip manufacturing technology parallel to the industry. Also, we have the largest pool of students who left India for better opportunities at the top companies of the world. We need to stop shaming them and look them as an asset so that they can come back and bring in all the latest technologies and know-how with them. Third, we need the government to just get out of the way for once. Many of the companies want to set up, but they don't, because doing business in India is not easy. Just see our ease of business ranking. So if India wants to be even considered a competition, then the government with all its bureaucracy should just get out of the way, just as it does in war-like situation for at least 5 years. Because believe me, it may not be a war like we know, but it will be like we have never seen. That's all for today. Thanks for watching MBA Part, and do share your thoughts and additional information in comments down below. And do like, share and subscribe for more such interesting content. See you soon.